Thanks for the introductions, and I wanted to thank everybody who's joining us today. We have a lot of really good content, and I know you'll find value in all of it. Just some quick background on Vertex and Pace and how we came together last year to really build a better managed service business focused on the legal industry. So Pace and Vertex have been extremely close for over 8 years. Both being part of the same peer group. We met in Philadelphia every quarter and collaborated with coaches and leading MSPs from around the world to help us develop our standards, our business processes, and our service delivery models. It became more apparent over the years that we had so much in common, so many similarities that we could really take advantage of coming together and forming a new MSP, largely focused on the legal industry. So this amalgamation allowed us to take the best from both of our MSPs. We now have a team of approximately 60 people, a security and compliance department, a dedicated cloud team, 24/7 emergency support, and a very robust client portal that provides real-time visibility into many of the critical components of your IT systems and the services we deliver. We're an employee-centric company, which has helped us build a great team of people to deliver excellent service to our clients. We've been certified a great place to work company for the last 8 years. Our MSP model is really based on proactive roles, and 50% of our team is focused on proactive. This is critical in being able to reduce risk, be able to deliver consistent results and high-performing, resilient IT systems for our clients. In order to be truly proactive, we need to have very well-defined, repeatable process. This is why it's important for us to be an ISO 9001:2015 certified business, where we're audited annually by a third party to make sure all of our processes and quality assurance is conforming to those standards. We currently support and manage approximately 60 law firms, primarily through the GTA, and this continues to be the industry we're focused on. Candice, over to you.
We wanted to start today by discussing, by outlining what we do at Purvis Redmond. We're an insurance broker. We've been around for just over 50 years, and we are a 100% employee-owned, private entrepreneurial firm. We've been representing law firms for close to 20 years, and we have over 100 clients in Ontario. I'm relatively new to the firm, and I lead the professional liability practice, all our professional clients, and that our marquee clients are law firms. So we're delighted to present today, and we'll move quickly through the agenda. So the seminar is divided into 2 parts. Part 1 has an insurance focus, and part 2 has a technology focus, followed by questions and answers. And we want to remind the audience that cyber claims are really happening to firms of all sizes in Ontario. So in the last 2 years, I've personally worked with firms, over 10 firms in Ontario, and all law firms that have had severe cyber claims. They tend to be ransomware focused, but we've also seen lawyers impersonated on third-party websites. We've seen lawyers leak files at airports with sensitive data, and we've seen funds wired to criminals versus suppliers, all of which is extremely concerning to the firms when it happens. So rest assured that cyber insurance has protected many law firms all over Canada, specifically in Ontario, because the exposure is real, and when it happens, it is severe. And with this happy news, I would like to introduce Matthew Thordo. He's Purvis Redmond's cyber insurance specialist, and he's going to present the insurance aspect of this seminar.
Hi, everyone. I'm Matthew. Thanks for the introduction, Candice. I want to start off by explaining a little bit about what cyber insurance is and what it protects. Cyber insurance can be described as largely a protection of your intangible digital assets, the services necessary to restore and repair those assets when there's a breach to your system, and then liability that may result because of one of these attacks. I'd like to invite everybody to give an example of what they think might not be covered by cyber insurance as it relates to computer technology. Feel free to speak up or type in the chat. I can give a quick example of something that people think may be covered that isn't necessarily covered. If someone were to break into your company and destroy servers or steal a computer, this actually wouldn't be protected by cyber coverage and would typically fall under a crime coverage. It would protect the physical computer itself and the cost of that, but the data within the computer or within the server wouldn't be covered. And this is exactly why you need cyber insurance protection. There are three main legs to cyber insurance, and they include incident response, first-party coverage, and third-party coverage. Incident response covers services required to make sure that cyber attacks are handled properly. When it comes to first-party events in particular, you need an expert of panel providers to help you get through this incident. These events happen fast and all at once, and it's not uncommon for your system to be up and running well one day and down the next. And the last thing you want to do in these situations is scramble for a provider to help you get through the situation. Time is of the essence with data breaches, and having an expert already on standby can make all the difference in the world. The standard first-party coverages that you'll typically see in a cyber policy are extortion, business interruption, data restoration, and cybercrime. Extortion, as it relates to cyber insurance, is when your system is breached and your information or the client's data that you hold is held for ransom. Business interruption coverage is activated when you or your IT vendor have a breach that disrupts the normal course of your business. Data restoration coverage is activated when data is lost or completely corrupted in order to get it back to its original state. Cybercrime covers things such as social engineering, phishing, invoice manipulation, and more. Third-party coverages are there to protect the organization from liability that may result from breaches. Network and privacy liability in particular protect you from claims arising out of the failure to protect client data. Media liability is there to protect against copyright infringement or other published online materials. Regulatory fines and protection are there for you to reimburse losses that may incur based on what you're legally obligated to pay. Sorry, I'm just having some trouble with the control here. So there are three main reasons for premium increases. Those include poor security practices, the sophistication of the attacks that are taking place, and the industry class by which you belong to. We've seen clients experience increases upwards of 80 to 100%. Luckily, with proper controls, it's not impossible to reduce your premiums to a more reasonable amount. I'm going to give an example of a common scenario that happens frequently and give a little bit of insight as to why cyber insurance premiums may be so expensive. Let's call this company Example LLP. They're a law firm with a yearly revenue of $4 million and 3 partners. They represent a mix of personal and corporate clients, and a couple of years ago, they took the necessary steps to ensure that their system was protected in order to protect their employees and their clients alike. One of the systems that they decided to use is called Software Y, an email and calendar server. Example LLP performs regular updates on Software Y as they're released. They also purchase cyber insurance to mitigate losses should an event arise, and they're currently up to date on all their patches. Halfway around the world, threat actor X has acquired a ransomware software. It's his job to probe the system of businesses all over Canada and the United States and deploy software where he can get access. Recently, it's become known that Software Y has a vulnerability that allows hackers to gain more access with ease. Threat actor X has decided that for the next couple of days, he's going to target businesses that use Software Y due to an update not yet being released. 4 days later, actor X breaks into Example LLP's system through an exploit and holds the client's personal information hostage, demanding a ransom payment of $1 million. After contacting their cyber insurer, the client decides to pay, or the insured decides to pay the ransom and use their insurance to conduct forensics and proper data restoration. Threat actor X then takes his payment and gives a cut of his earnings to the ransomware software provider as his fee for using their service. This story is the perfect storm of events that happens frequently. The first thing to note in particular is the security practices are often maintained, but vulnerabilities can still exist if one becomes known and there's not yet an update. In today's cybersecurity environment, cybersecurity needs to be active managed on a weekly basis with the proper safeguards in place. The other critical piece of the story is the threat actor. When you purchase fire protection on a building, a claim is usually the result of an accident or a rogue person or two committing an act. On the other hand, cyber attacks are a sophisticated web of people acting as a business. Most ransomware threat actors are part of a large syndicate, often contracting out its software to what they call members to launch attacks where they receive a commission. Some ransomware syndicates have started a bug bounty program where they'll actually pay other hackers to find bugs in their software to reduce the likelihood that their impact would be reversed. And law firms are the perfect industry class to target because it's essential that the information remains confidential. This means a couple things. One, attackers are going to get better because they're growing with active investments. It also means that less skilled hackers are going to be able to launch attacks, and they're going to be able to do so in an easily replicable way, and they're going to be launched at scale. Known exploits are immediately going to be pushed by threat actors because this is an active business. Chubb has released a cyber loss index that shows the losses for different industries. Since 2018, professional services has remained at the top of the list, accounting for 24 to 30% of all cyber claims. Other loss leaders in this field contain technology, manufacturing, and financial institutions. They fluctuate year to year, but professional services is consistently the top. And of these firms, over a third of them are less than $25 million in revenue. There's a large misconception that small firms aren't important enough to be targeted, but this couldn't be further from the truth. The reason for this is because they're exploitative in nature and indiscriminate of their targets. Either way, an attacker knows they're going to be receiving a quick payday, whether it's from a small firm or a large firm. In reality, it's easier for them to attack four smaller firms than it is for them to attack one large firm with a really complex IT infrastructure. As you can see from the graph, the growth of attacks has grown significantly since 2020 for small firms compared to large ones. They've also released a compilation of what the most common causes for attacks are. Unfortunately, hacking and malware remain the common causes of attacks, accounting for 50% of all breaches. Unfortunately, they're often usually the most costly as well, as they involve ransomware payments, data restoration costs, and sometimes even public relations management. There's a breakdown here of the total claims costs and how they're allocated. You can see that almost 70% of the claim is directly for the company to bring their systems back online. Contrast this with 2009, first-party costs only accounted for 27% of cyber claims. The reason for this is because we've become so dependent on our technological systems that when they go down, they cost a lot of money to get back online. Another insurer, CFC, has released similar statistics. According to their calculations, an average ransomware breach costs a company over $4.5 million once everything is factored in. The ransom alone is only $300,000, but the cost to get all your assets back and maintain your system at the position it was in beforehand is extremely costly. They estimate that the current cost of ransomware globally is $20 billion and estimated to rise to $265 billion in less than 10 years. Of the companies that have been hacked and ransomware, just about 70% were companies with less than 1,000 employees. You might be thinking, well, this doesn't apply to me because I outsource my IT to a third-party provider and they handle everything for me. But this couldn't be further from the truth. The reason being, in 2021, when a third-party vendor was attacked, on average, 2.46 other companies were affected based on this attack. In 2022, this rose to 4.73. The reason this is important is because it shows that third-party vendor interruption coverage has doubled in importance within 1 year. Additionally, 44% of third-party providers were beefing up their security controls after an event took place, showing that they may not have been in the best cybersecurity position in the first place. There's no way to 100% reduce your risk of becoming hacked or breached in any way, but with the proper steps, you can mitigate this quite a bit. Coalition, another insurer, has released a statistic that 54% of entry points during breaches are from emails. They're a huge loss for insurers, and this is why they are very adamant when you're filling out a cyber application that you need to adhere to certain conditions, and if you don't, they'll refuse to insure altogether or significantly increase your premiums. Most companies have a misconception that their email is the most secure form of communication, but this isn't necessarily the case. So this was actually a question I asked earlier. Apologies for that. So does anyone have an idea of what they think makes a firm an attractive risk? No? Okay. So there's a few key controls that Pace will go over in a little bit to highlight what they need, but these are the important ones from the insurance perspective. Multi-factor authentication, virtual protection networks, or virtual private networks, endpoint detection response systems, backups, encryption, privileged access management tools, quick patching deployments, usually within 48 hours, isolated end-of-life technologies, and annual incident response testing. There's a few trends that we're seeing in the cybersecurity space in terms of insurance, and it's a lot different than your typical policy and the way that you interact with it. Most policies, you get them and you throw them in the drawer and hope that you never need to use them when something goes wrong. But when it comes to the cyber insurance market, it's become an active policy, meaning that insurers have realized that implementing active scanning capabilities for vulnerabilities will allow less claims to take place. This is because if they're able to alert you of something that's gone wrong, there's a high likelihood that you're going to fix that and there's not going to be a claim to begin with. Additionally, they offer other services, often such as consultations on how to improve security procedures and weekly or monthly check-ins with you. Oftentimes, these are cybersecurity professionals that are actually part of the insurance company, offering both free and premium services. The third interesting trend that we're seeing is a lot of cyber insurance companies are partnering with other organizations to provide free consultation services on things such as crisis communication, security, password protection, phishing training, etc. They offer these free services in hopes that you will use them more than once. Afterwards, you will be charged for, but the fact that you can use them once or even twice for free to begin with is quite good. Now I'm going to pass it on to Pace to conduct their part of the presentation. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Matthew. Tyler, you can hear me? Thumbs up? Okay, great. So I think, Matthew probably touched on this a little bit, but I wanted to give you kind of from our perspective, the IT perspective, why do we all need cyber insurance? And I think Matthew gave us a really good overview of kind of what's going on. But I throw this picture up, if you recognize him, Robert Mueller, the ex-director of the FBI, he said this like 20 years ago. There's only two types of companies, those that have been hacked and those that will be. If you go and listen to any cybersecurity experts speak, everybody is saying the same thing. It's that we have to prepare for that fact that we might be attacked. Criminal operations, Matthew was alluding to, are getting more sophisticated. They're more organized. They're well funded. It's not just one guy in his basement or his garage. These are large companies, very organized into doing these things. And the problem is they all have found a way around all the standard security tools that have been put in place to date to protect us. Some of the basic tools, firewalls, they figured out a way to get around mostly through social engineering and getting in through the back door through email. Antivirus, they figured out a way to create new viruses that just are undetectable right now. Spam filtering, creating and crafting email messages that get past spam filtering, and even multi-factor authentication, which everybody thought was the big silver bullet. This is how, we protect ourselves for sure. No one is going to get access to this second code I'm going to get texted to me or emailed. Well, the sad news is they have figured out a way, mostly through social engineering. I'm not going to go through it in detail here, but I literally just did a security webinar. If you wanted to access it, you can go to our site, pacetechnical.com, under media and access it. Now, this isn't to say, oh, well, if they found a way past all these tools, just give up on them. No, absolutely, that's not what I'm saying. We still absolutely need all these things. Otherwise, it'd be the complete, wild, wild west. So I'm starting out with kind of, what's the strategy that we all need to have in place now that we're sort of taking this change in direction with security? And the strategy is assuming a breach mentality. We have to assume and plan and prepare for that fact that something might get through, somebody might click on the wrong thing, or some new attack vector might come that's going to get past our defenses, and we just need to be prepared. So what does that look like? Well, we just need to know the difference between perimeter defense, which is basically like the older tools that we've used, the firewalls, the antivirus, those basic elements, versus more modern tools, which focus on breach detection. Actually, newer tools that use artificial intelligence, machine learning to notice anomalies and unusual behavior on machines and within systems, within networks, to detect if somebody has actually gotten past those perimeter defenses. The second area would be vulnerability management. This is like a continuous auditing and remediation process, tools that will constantly be looking into your systems, into your networks, and alert you to anywhere that you might have risks or gaps, versus the old mentality where, oh, maybe once a year or every couple of years, I'll hire a company to come in and do an audit. Well, unfortunately, things are moving so quickly within cybersecurity that you can't just rely on a 2-year-old audit to think that you're secure. You need to invest in some of these newer strategies. And then incident response planning, obviously, some sort of plan in place to go through the exercise of what would happen if we don't have access to our email or our servers or our cloud resources or our files or whatever the case is. And part of that goes along with that is this fourth one, tabletop exercises. Literally trying to go through the motions of, what would happen in all these events? How do we keep our business going? How do we mitigate some of these risks if we can, hopefully get ahead of it and identify these things? And how do we keep our business running and functioning if we ever had any kind of an event? And then the last piece is just on process and reporting. We can't take it for granted, whether you have an internal, staffed IT team within your company, or you outsource to a company like ours. We can't take for granted anymore that we think somebody is doing everything that they need to do to make sure that our businesses and our firms are secure. We can't just take somebody's word for granted. We need to see reporting, and there needs to be process and procedure, within your IT to understand. And somebody needs to give you a report in black and white that lets you know, here's where your risks and concerns are, so that you can do something about it. I can just tell you that if somebody has that proactive process and procedure to look into all these things and let you know exactly what's going on, the reporting part is the easy part. So just make sure if you're not getting reported, I would almost question, is there really process and procedure going on behind that? So, lots of people had come and asked us for, how do we make sure that we are secure? So I introduced this actually a couple of years ago on a webinar that somebody just wanted to simplify cybersecurity. Just tell me, what should I be doing? So I created this 18 basic essentials that every business probably should have. You'll notice the bottom 3 are in a slightly different color. These are, I think, more like more advanced solutions that are now starting to come into the mainstream into small and medium-sized businesses, whereas these were generally things that were for, highly regulated industries or the enterprise. And I will say a couple of years ago when I did this, I had about 6 elements, but a few of them now have come more so into the mainstream in small and medium-sized businesses. So I don't expect anybody to squint. I'm sorry in advance. I'm going to go through these all one by one very quickly with you. Some of them will go through super quick because they're simple and not much to talk about. But this first one, if you can see the new sticker there, I added in because the last time I presented this one was just talking about antivirus and basic anti-malware software. But Matthew had actually alluded to what insurance companies are looking for. This is one of the things they're looking for: EDR software, and EDR just stands for endpoint detection and response. The MDR stands for managed. So whereas EDR software it includes all the elements of basic antivirus and anti-malware, still those perimeter defenses to try and stop things from coming in, but it goes a step beyond that and uses artificial intelligence, machine learning, and it's actually looking for anomalies to alert you that somebody may have gotten past those perimeter defenses, may be lurking in your systems. Because modern attackers don't just come in anymore and drop a piece of malware on your system and then encrypt all your files and put the big message up that says pay me $500. They lurk in systems now because they're trying to create more value so that they can ask for a bigger bounty. So the first thing they're going to do is try and copy and steal all of your data. Because even if you have a great recovery system like backups or things like that, once your data is stolen and they are going to hold you ransom for that data and basically extort you or publicly shame you by threatening to make all that data, which could be sensitive, they're going to make that public. So anyways, so that's why EDR is such a critical component in this day. And we're going to see that as a mandatory requirement. We've just made it mandatory within our service now. Any new company that comes onto our support service, automatically, we're just making this included with the service. So everybody should be looking at, every law firm should be replacing older technology with this more advanced software.
Yeah, I think, Mike, they say that the average attack now, they're in your network for, I believe, 9 months before they actually initiate that attack, just doing reconnaissance and understanding, where the most valuable parts of your data are and gathering all that intel before they'll actually launch that attack or, that ransom.
Yeah. Also, that last webinar that I did, I also kind of went through in detail that process of how attackers are actually going in and what they're doing once they get inside. So certainly, if you're interested, have a look. Password management, hopefully there's not too much to talk about here. Every year a report comes out that tells of the most common passwords, and still the most common password is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So hopefully nobody on this call is using that, but just to say that you really need some sort of process and policy around your password management. Similar with spam and phishing protection. Well, spam filtering, I'm assuming everybody on this call has some level of that. Otherwise, all we'd be doing all day, every day is parsing through junk mail. Phishing protection takes it to another level where, a lot of that software is analyzing links that come in emails or links that your people might see on a web page, and sandboxing and sort of in the background testing those links once someone clicks on it to see if it's going to take them to a potentially malicious site. If it thinks it will, it's going to deny access. Firewall and VPN, I'm assuming everybody on this call also has a firewall in place, but what really needs to be happening with firewalls, they're not 100% set it and forget it. Somebody occasionally still needs to look into them, make sure firmware is updated, make sure somebody is, looking through logs in the configurations of the firewalls. We can't just take it for granted that it is set up properly. Multi-factor authentication, what a lot of people thought, again, as I mentioned, was the silver bullet, that no one's going to get past it. We still absolutely need this. If you're in Microsoft 365, Office 365, you absolutely need to have multi-factor authentication. Most insurance providers will not provide you with cyber insurance unless you have that in place. But Microsoft 365 is about the number one target for these criminals because so many people are in there, and it's easy to manipulate and duplicate what that Microsoft login screen looks like. And that's how they trick people into gaining access to their email. And from there, they can do a whole lot of damage. So this is an absolute requirement. Everybody should have I'm always surprised to hear some people that kind of go against the grain with this and say that they don't want to implement it.
And Mike, just going back to that multi-factor authentication, because earlier in the presentation you talked about hackers finding ways through social engineering and being able to get past MFA. Another thing that people really need to pay attention to, I think the term now is called MFA fatigue, and you're so used to seeing pop-ups and things on your phone about authenticating that you stop even really paying attention and clicking to authenticate, where you don't even know where that login's coming from. And believe it or not, hackers are getting in that way because they'll fish for credentials. They'll start to try to get into your Office 365 or your network, and they'll send off that authentication to your phone. And if you're not paying attention, you may just click and allow them access inadvertently, not realizing what you've done.
Exactly. That's a very, very good and important point. Whereas we used to have and still do password fatigue, trying to manage so many different passwords for different sites. Exactly what Tyler is saying. That's very important to ensure that you do take every request seriously. So as far as backups, the only thing that I'll say here, there's still older technology that exists. You just need to understand what you want from backups. You need to make sure you have backups in place. And I ask every business owner or person responsible for IT this one question. If you had any kind of a major event, fire, flood, disaster, what would be the process and timeline to get your business back up and running? And at least 50% of the people I ask, they don't know the answer to that question. Everybody that's responsible needs to understand and know the answer to that question. It's possible you could be on an older backup technology, and really the difference between more modern backup and business continuity solutions is recovery within, minutes to, an hour or a couple hours versus your business being down for days. And that's the side that you don't want to be caught on. So just by simply asking some questions around what that timeline and process is, will get you there. Patch management, this is like updates that, Microsoft and other vendors release, security patches, bug fixes, and things like that. Again, I'll only say that you just need to make sure that there is a process in place and somebody is reporting the results to make sure that these updates are actually happening. But this one here is one that, if there was one thing that I left you with, this is probably the most critical piece of any, IT, cybersecurity plan and scenario, is the security and alignment process and being proactive with it. Because this is our philosophy. Cybersecurity results are 25% dependent on the tools that you use, but 75% dependent on your hygiene. And by hygiene, that's the proactive process, procedures, the system checks, the reporting, the risk reporting. And most people think, to be cyber secure, all we need is to have all the great tools. Well, I can tell you every business across the globe has cybersecurity tools, and cybercrime is not slowing down, it's only speeding up. So the areas and the gaps and what I call blind spots exist when you don't have really good hygiene. If you don't have a good proactive process, and again, this is also the part of it, you need to see the reporting that somebody is doing this proactive process. But I like to present this in an analogy that I've done before, just to make the concept simple. Like, consider your home when you're thinking about security. We have all these things, I'll call them tools, on our home, like locks on your doors, locks on the windows. Maybe you have an alarm system, smoke detectors, carbon monoxide, even blinds and curtains to keep people from peeking in. So let's consider these like the equivalent of the tools that we use on your home. How do you know you're secure? Well, even though you have locks on the door, somebody still has to check and make sure the door is locked and actually click the lock. Same thing with windows. Are they all closed? Are the locks on? The alarm system, you need to check if it's turned on. Is it covering all the areas of your home? Smoke detectors, carbon monoxide, they need to be tested regularly. You need to make sure you have a battery if they're battery operated. And then curtains and blinds, obviously you need to check if they're closed. So just having the tools doesn't mean you're 100% secure. Somebody needs to do the process around it. So now if we think about the IT network, here's all the tools generally that we have in place: firewalls, your security software, monitoring tools, backups, maybe even some additional security tools. How do you know that you're truly secure? Well, with the firewall, you need to make sure that it's updated, firmware is updated, check the settings and configurations, make sure you have some sort of geo filtering so that, third world countries aren't, accessing your network when they shouldn't. Security software, is it up to date? Is it a more modern tool? Monitoring tools themselves to make sure that they're configured properly, that they are monitoring the proper things. And I like to tell people, a lot of people think, monitoring is, a proactive tool. It actually only tells you after something has gone wrong. So it's not necessarily even a proactive tool, but it is absolutely necessary. Backups, you need to make sure they're tested, know what your recovery time is, know what the process is. And then the same thing goes for any kind of additional security tools. But IT security goes even beyond the tools that we use. There's a whole lot of other factors. There's your user security. There's the Active Directory, which is kind of the brains and the security, the central security of Windows networks. Wireless security, remote access security, remote software, file access, group policies. There's so many other things that need to be in place. Just as an example, our company alone, with our process, we have about 100 to 150 line items of things that we're checking regularly because there's that many things that need to be checked. And then reporting. So again, I'll stress again the reporting piece. Somebody needs to come to you with a report that shows you what's being done and exactly where you stand on all of those things. Tools are only part of the strategy. So moving on, documentation and reporting. If you look at any kind of, cybersecurity standard or framework, this is one of the key elements: updated documentation, as well as reporting of, gaps, risks, vulnerabilities within the network. Dark web monitoring. This is another basic element of our service that we just sort of made mandatory, but dark web monitoring is monitoring the dark web to see if any of your people's IDs, password combinations, email addresses happen to show up on any of these, dark web shopping sites where they're selling everything from credit card numbers to IDs and password combinations and whatnot. So if you have this in place, it gives you an alert to let you know that somebody's password may have been compromised. And then security awareness training and phishing simulation, another thing that we just made mandatory as a part of our service now. And you'll see most cyber insurance companies looking for this as well. So you need to have both access to on-demand, video-based training for your people, as well as the other key component is testing your victims regularly with phishing simulation that'll send your people emails to test them to see if they fall victim and click on things that they shouldn't click on. And if they do, then you can assign them some more training to make sure it doesn't happen again. Cyber insurance, I always say when all else fails, but it's actually a critical component to ensure that your business can recover, certainly financially. But there's a whole lot more behind the scenes if you do get breached. Behind cyber insurance. We're going to go over that in a minute as well. Mobile device management, as we become, especially through the last couple of years, as people have been working more in hybrid environments, we're only using more and more mobile devices to access information. You just need to understand that if you are providing people access to emails and company assets and things like that through their own personal mobile devices, that's definitely an area of risk. If you do implement one of these mobile device management technologies, you have a way to, protect your company information, assets, data, and whatnot, whether you're providing a company provided mobile device or the person is bringing their own device. So if you don't have something like this in place, it is something that you should consider to gain a little bit more control and just make sure you don't have any unnecessary risk.
A lot of email security also ties into mobile device management. What Mike mentioned earlier with safe link protection and just the multi-factor authentication on email systems and stuff, because most breaches through a mobile device will spawn usually from the email.
Exactly. So encryption, this one here is more so like a general requirement, is certainly from whether it's cyber insurance or any of the cyber standards, is definitely encrypting any kind of data at rest, file servers and things like that, cloud systems and whatnot. So, but there's additional things. You can have encryption for mobile devices. You can turn on encryption features for laptops if people are taking them out of the office, even secure email systems. So those are some other things that you can look into. Web app security is more of a newer technology that is monitoring any web-based applications that you have to try and detect any kind of abnormal behavior, like multiple sign-in attempts or geographical attempts coming in from other countries where your people do not live or work. So that's another layer that you can add on all of your web apps. So now we're just getting into the last three. So the first one here, policies and procedures. This is really kind of alluding to like incident response plans, a change management policy, remote access policy, acceptable use policies, data retention, and things like that. These are going to be requirements for any kind of cybersecurity standard or framework that you might have. But we're starting to see now the industry, certain industries, certainly the banking industry, the insurance industry, kind of moving towards this direction where they're going to start demanding that you show evidence that you actually have a plan in place. So SIEM and SOC services. A SIEM service is basically a piece of software that, all of our computers and servers all day, every day are generating logs and generating events that happen. Most of these are just benign things that, it's everyday events that happen on a computer. But then some of these things, though, could be tipping you off that, somebody has infiltrated your systems, there's unusual activity, somebody has gained control of something that they shouldn't have. But how do you analyze that? So this kind of software parses through all the everyday things and just zones in on anything that could be potentially malicious. And a SOC service is usually along with this kind of SIEM software. A SOC service is basically a security operations center. And it's basically a team of people that 24/7 are monitoring and parsing through these things to see what's a real threat and what's not a real threat. But again, this is more so we see it in the enterprise, but we're going to see, I think in the next couple of years, this become a lot more mainstream in small and medium-sized businesses. Same thing with...
Sorry, Mike, just to jump in for a second,
yeah.
But when you were talking earlier about the assumed breach mentality and just being able to identify, I mentioned the fact that most attacks happen after somebody's been in your network for maybe 9 months on average before they launch that attack. These are the types of services and systems that help to be able to identify when somebody's in the environment that shouldn't be. So all of these logs, as Mike was mentioning, are parsed, and then that SOC service can actually identify when there's this abnormal behavior. Same with the EDR, MDR type of anti-malware software. It's looking inside the network more than just the perimeter to be able to identify when there's unusual activity in your network.
Yeah. And just to round it out with the last one, number 18, which is security standard compliance. So there's a lot of, security standards that exist, whether it's the ISO 27001, the NIST framework, the CIS controls. So it's not an absolute requirement now. However, most things, including the insurance industry and their requirements for getting cyber insurance, are based on these security standards. They haven't gone to the level of saying that you have to be 100% compliant with these, but we are seeing that coming down the road. We can't go into great detail about these. That would be a whole webinar in itself. But if you have any questions about these, we're certainly here and willing to answer those. So we wanted to throw up a poll question, and maybe Fjordy, you can throw this up for us through Zoom. Is, how do you feel about your cybersecurity posture right now? And we'll just take a quick second and see how everybody is feeling about, what they're doing, what their current, we call it cybersecurity posture. you're safe from whatever cyber attacks might be lurking out there or whatnot. So we're going to give another maybe 10, 15 seconds here for people to submit their answers. And now maybe Fjordy, you can close the poll and show us the answers. All right, so it looks like we have a lot of people in the middle, although it would be nice to see more than 11% that are supremely confident. But definitely, there's probably, like any company, there's always more that we could be doing. But
and I was going to say, yeah, security. I mean, really, it's called now. It's a journey and not the destination. That it never ends. That you're constantly just trying to reduce the biggest amount of risk, and there's always going to be some risk inherent to every single business. I mean, I'm sure most of you read about the Indigo attack. I think it was last week or 2 weeks ago, and they were down for over a week. So these are, big businesses, banks, governments, hospitals, and stuff that still get breached. So it really just continuously aligning and understanding where that risk is to a business and working through it. And unfortunately, that continues for forever, I guess, essentially, as long as these attack vectors are out there.
Yep. Great. So, and the last thing that we wanted to cover, and it's going to be super brief, about what to do if you're breached. And Matthew and Candace have provided us with this document, which is basically talking from an insurance company perspective. When you go in to make a claim regarding a breach, and what happens from that point. So this document will be available for download, as well as my 18 ways and cyber essentials that I just went through is also available for you to download through the Taloma site. But the one thing I wanted to point out on this document here is, looking at the incident timeline. A lot of people think, oh, well, if I get breached, I just talk to my IT people and they handle everything. Well, if you're going to the point of submitting a claim, whether it's, you lost money or had downtime or things like that, and you're going to make a claim through insurance, the insurance company is actually who would provide, like, if somebody needed to come in and, do a forensic investigation, those assets and resources are actually provided by the insurance company. It's not going to be your IT people going in and doing any kind of a forensic investigation on an insurance claim. So again, this document, it's kind of a handy reference to have available if something ever did happen. Just walks you through, from an insurance perspective, the things that you should be doing. So, and with that, sorry, was there something you wanted to add?
No, I'm okay.
Awesome.
I was just going to add the point also that it's really important to work closely with your insurance broker also, and making sure you really understand the requirements of your policy, how to get into the right policy, how to figure out how much coverage your firm should buy in terms of a cyber insurance policy. So Candace, Matthew, I don't know if there's anything else you want to add there, but I know that's something that we constantly get on the IT side. I'm just trying to get an understanding from us on how they should go about buying cyber insurance, but really that should be something you work with your brokers on, correct?
Mm-hmm. Correct. Most claims have been covered. We've never actually seen a matter that hasn't been covered unless you have multiple policies covering the same issue. That could cause an issue. So if you have like a cyber insurance with your office package, cyber insurance with your professional liability, and cyber insurance with a cyber insurer, in theory, all three can decline a claim. We haven't seen that. The argument around it is that the most specific policy, your standalone cyber insurance, should be paying first. So that would be something that would need to be clarified. So that would just require your broker doing a bit of negotiation behind the scene. But have we seen a claim that has been fully denied? No. But that leads me to my biggest question, and Matthew will answer, and that is, what limit do you recommend? So that is our number one question we're getting now, because most of our clients have cyber insurance. but what limit is appropriate for you?
So a lot of our clients are purchasing 1 million, 2 million, and 5 million limits. In my opinion, they need at least a $5 million limit. The reason being, like one of the statistics I showed earlier, the average ransomware claim is over $4.5 million. And oftentimes people get bogged in the idea about, the ransomware is only $1 million or the ransomware is only 700,000. But even when you get your data back, a lot of it's going to be corrupted. So you have to pay for that. There's going to be a forensics investigation. You're going to have to pay for that. And if it becomes public in any way, you're going to need public relations management. On the flip side too, if you're shut down for a week, you're going to need to cover certain costs of doing business. And likewise, if it happens to your IT vendor that you rely on. And once you get into the $50 million revenue range, even the $30 million revenue range, 5 million might not be adequate, because if an attacker's in your system, they know exactly how much you're making and they know what you're able to pay them. So that situation becomes a lot more tricky.
So one of the pushbacks we get is that clients often say it's so expensive, we can only afford to buy what we're contractually required by our clients. And that's certainly one factor driving limits. But I always say, if you have 1 million and we recommend 5, go slowly, go to 2 to 3 to 4, and take 5 years to get to the right number. Because my fear isn't that you may really have a claim. If you don't buy enough limit and it could have cost the firm $20,000 and you're only paid 1 million out of the 2 or 3 required to recover, there's going to be a lot of issues. So we always say, for budget reasons, at least slowly consider increasing over time.
So I had a question that I wanted to ask as well. If you didn't have a specific cyber insurance policy, is there anything covered under, what could fall as a result of a cyber attack, either with business insurance, errors in general business insurance, errors and omissions and whatnot? Is there any sort of basic cyber coverage involved in any of those?
Some policies have liability coverage if you're sued by your clients. They don't usually cover your first party costs, which are about the 70-80% of the claim. Mm-hmm. So if you get sued by a third party, there is coverage through LawPro for $250,000 in cybercrime related coverage. You may have coverage under your office package, but again, we don't recommend relying on these other policies. We always recommend buying standalone cyber insurance there are many carriers out there. It's a little more restricted for law firms because you're the number one source of claims, but there are a couple of options available for everyone on the call.
What I would suggest to everybody is if you haven't had a conversation with whomever your insurance provider is recently, certainly within the last 3 to 6 months, I highly recommend everybody at least pick up the phone and have a conversation to see what's new and make sure that you are up to date.